everybody. Good morning. My name is Polly Morris, and I am here today to talk with you about stigma, addiction, and recovery. What I want to do is talk about some of the stereotypical names that we call people when we're referring to them. And I'll give you an example of what I mean when we say those people. And I always use the quotes because I hear it all the time. I don't want those people in my backyard, right? The NIMBYs, not in my backyard. I don't want those people living down the street from the school. I don't want those people coming to our department. I don't want those people coming in our store. They're scumbags. They're going to steal things. They're going to steal my wallet and help me look for it. Is that so? What do these people look like? What do we refer to them as? Give me a couple names. Elkie, lush, loser, dope fiend, crackhead. Gosh, there's so many other names out there. But so we use these names. Junkie is one of the worst ones. And addict and alcoholic. Those are words that we hear a lot. Abuser, user. So those are the things, and those all have such a negative connotation. So when we think about what someone looks like, and we hear, what does a junkie look like? What does an addict look like? What comes to your mind? Is it someone you know? Is it someone you saw on TV? Is it someone you saw in one of those ads before and after? It's a person. That's what it is, a person. So, what does a person with an addiction look like? Well, how about any of these folks, right? Look at the little old lady in the top. Her hand is really sore. Maybe she's got some Aspirin cream on there, or some codeine cream, or she's taking Percocets. We don't know. And who's that below her? That's Angelina Jolie. Supposedly she has a heroin addiction. I did not hear that from Brad. And what about those three millennials on the top? You don't know what's up with them. And then medical people, right? Nobody with a stethoscope around their neck could have an addiction problem. Could have a problem with drugs and alcohol. What's the access, right? So what does a person with an addiction look like? How about some of these folks? Look at those guys with the tats. Talk about ink, huh? I would cross the street if I saw them coming down the street. Although they'd probably be driving Harleys and drinking beer and being really loud, right? And they'd probably want to fight. Is that stereotyping? Anyway, those are some bad hombres. And who's the guy with the gauge? He looks like some kind of a cult leader. And who's the drunk in the middle? And why would an old lady be in with these people, right? Well, the old lady, her name is Zetta. I'm going to tell you a quick little story about Zetta. My friend Maureen is a nurse and a person in recovery. Now, Zetta is her sister-in-law. So Maureen's brother had to go in for heart surgery down in the city and asked Maureen to come and stay with Zetta. So Maureen does. They're not close, but she also knows that Zetta has dementia and that Zetta likes to drink. And I said, Maureen's in recovery from drinking. So she goes to stay with Zetta, and the first night she's there, Zetta says, I have a cough. I need some cough syrup. And Maureen says, okay, I'll go get you some cough syrup. And Zetta says, and I don't want the generic brand, I want Robitussin. Okay, so Maureen goes and she gets the Robitussin. She brings the Robitussin back. Zetta, you need help with that? No, I got it. Okay. So Maureen takes off. She comes back a little while later, and you know what? Go. Zetta drank the whole bottle of Robitussin. She was feeling no pain. So Maureen, the nurse, calls 911, gets the EMTs over there as quick as she can. Well, the EMTs, they know Zetta, and they've been here before for just about the same reason. So the story here is that it doesn't matter what you're addicted to if you have an addiction. It could be food or your phone or sex or drugs or whatever, but the addiction will help you to find ways that are creative to get what you want. Some people might call that manipulation, but I think that people with addictions have the best creative thinking to get what they need ever. So these are some numbers from the CDC, and the idea of this is I wanted to see where we were before COVID. So you can see the little orange line that goes almost all the way up. That was fentanyl before COVID. We know we had a pretty big problem. There was a lot of people dying, but we were getting a hand on it. Methamphetamine has been increasing. So we thought by COVID things would be better underhand, and that at COVID nobody would be able to get the drugs across the borders and into our country, and so the sources would be cut off, and so people wouldn't be able to use, right? Well, that didn't happen. So you can see here, and take it as a visual, I'm not going to go in and explain it all, but you can see that the rates increased during COVID, basically. We did not have any sources cut off. We had a very high increase. The surprising thing, or maybe not surprising, is that alcohol rates in New Hampshire rose by 10%. You say, well, that's not very much. Usually in a year they might rise by 2.3, 2.5%. So to shoot to 10%, that's pretty high. And I know there's variables. Restaurants were open, restaurants weren't. We were stocking up. Somebody had all the toilet paper and all the booze. I don't know. So the idea is that rates of addiction increased. And while we might not be seeing all that right now since we're coming out of it and we're all so happy, down the road a piece, the progression of addiction is going to manifest itself somewhere. And treatment is already pretty scarce. So we're hoping that, New Hampshire will be prepared, as will other states. We wanted to talk about those feelings that someone has, the chronic relapsing brain disease. How does that feel? Like, do you want it? Anybody want to become addicted when they grow up? Oh. But the mental piece, if you've ever experienced depression or anxiety or even just like elusive thoughts, I just can't quite grab it. Your brain has impacted for sure. But how about your emotions? So anybody who's ever used any kind of drugs or alcohol or medications can sometimes do that. They sort of shift your emotions around. They can become stronger. So I'm going to cry after I take this med. Or, I've been drinking and I'm so sad. I'm so happy. Some drugs are depressants. Some are stimulants. But the emotional toll it takes on someone, because they're constantly barraged by the stigma of our society and the discrimination, or the threat of being locked up for a medical condition that they have to jump through hoops to get medication, life-saving medication for, it can be a heavy, taxing load. And then there's the physical symptoms. So COVID had some awful symptoms of like hearing about how people died during COVID. That was awful, sad. Withdrawal symptoms from these drugs, from Suboxone or from opiates or from methamphetamine, the withdrawal is so physically racking. I highlighted some of them in red, not even all of them. Like if I had a couple of these on one good day, I might call out sick from work. Tremors, shaking, diarrhea, constipation, vomiting. I sound like one of those commercials with the side effects, right? I mean, they have the emotional toil. And then you might be off coordination. You might, you're angry. I just don't want to feel this way. And so you walk into the doctor's office and you look like crap. And you're withdrawing, so you feel like crap. And all you want is someone to hear you. And perhaps listen to you and be with you for a few minutes instead of just going frequent flyers awful crabby today. Security. People are in pain. That's why they use drugs and alcohol. That's why. Why should we care? I think I just said it, but I'll say it again. Why should we care? At the beginning of this, we asked about raising your hand if you were impacted by someone or your own alcohol and drug use. So the assumption was that we all know someone. So the reason we should care is because, number one, they're people, just like us. We are the people. They are your mothers, they are your brothers, they are your sisters, they are the veterinarian, they are the postman, my postmaster, they are the insurance agent, they are the guy at the gas station, and they might go to meetings at night somewhere, or they might not, but they are here. And to continue to war on people, calling it a war on drugs, it means we don't care. We've created poverty and drug abuse and sex trade with the limitations we have put on a medical condition that should be treated like any other. So what can you do right now? Woo! Well, you're here, and that is really, really great. Thank you for being here. Thank you for having me here. And there's something you can do right now today. Change your language. Change the way you speak to people with an addiction and about people with addiction. So how can we do that? Well, instead of using some of those words we said before, like junkie, crackhead, dope fiend, elkie, maybe we say, oh, that's Polly. She's a person with an addiction. Or she's a person in recovery. Because which sounds better if I say, hi, I'm Polly, I'm an addict and an alcoholic. Or I say, hi, I'm Polly and I'm a person in long-term recovery. Which one sounds better? Well, the long-term recovery even sounds more professional, but it sounds like I'm making movement, like I'm taking action, like recovery, here I am. When I say I'm an addict and an alcoholic, it kind of makes me sort of sound like I'm still stuck in it. You don't really know where I am. So person-first language puts the person before the medical condition that they have. You can reference it by name if you like. Steve has a cocaine disorder, or Sheila has a problem with wine, or you can use different language than calling someone a schizophrenic or an alcoholic or an addict or an abuser or anything else that sounds negative and usually brings punitive consequences. There was a research study that was done, I believe out of Mass General, by the Addictionary here, and they had experts, counselors, a whole host of folks be on this panel, and they used the word user versus abuser. And the ones, the reference to abuser, the folks said that it should be more punitive, that it should be less treatment, it was their own fault, it was the person who, they did it to themselves, so what? The user was more friendly in the sense of, okay, maybe this person could use some treatment. Okay, maybe this person, we aren't going to put him in jail. We'll just sort of get him into some diversion. That's an eye roll for sure. So the idea of person-first language is exactly that. Instead of referring to someone, like nobody ever called me, hey, cancer, or hey, tumor, come over here. Like nobody ever did that. Yet we'll yell across, he's an addict, don't worry. So just thinking about these things, the person is what really matters, regardless of the condition. A person with new shoes, a person with a bowling disorder, I don't know, but like the idea of we use some negative language for some things, it perpetuates the stigma. It perpetuates the negative things we have about people with addiction, and they're just people, there are people. We have words like abuser, addict, some of the things you hear. So instead of using those, again, just an extra stress on person first. And it doesn't come out like really easy because addict comes out pretty quick. Alcoholic. So when you say like person with a, it's kind of hard to get that out there. But once you change that thought, that you have to pause long enough to change the wording in your mouth to, instead of addict, you go, oh, person with, that also has changed your feelings. And that will change your actions. So if you change that thought, you change the feelings, you change the actions, which is your behavior. That reduces stigma and discrimination. More people get help, less people die. I hear this all the time. People in recovery say, I've been clean 30 days. And I say, were you dirty before that? And people don't know what to say because we're so used to saying that. But that's the assumption. I'm clean now. Well, okay, great. I like to say to people, well, what about recovery? How about a nice word like that? I'm in recovery, which we'll talk about more in this presentation if I ever get going. It's a process of change. So, dirty, clean, get rid of them. We say a positive drug screen or a negative drug screen, and the word lapse and relapse just sound really punitive too. Reoccurrence or is active, back in active addiction. Like there are words you can use. Again, it's changing how you think about it and using it more person-friendly, person first. when we use language that's more dignifying and respectful of people with a medical condition, we stop the perpetuation of stigma and discrimination. That's the goal. Saving lives, that's the goal. Thank you so much for having me here today. Thank you all for coming here today. This is a big deal. And you can go out of here today with your action step, changing those language, change the thoughts, change those feelings, and that will change your actions, your behaviors. Can't go wrong. Okay, thank you.